r/pettyrevenge fiancé called me broke at Christmas, so I revealed my secret house. Maybe Sarah can finally start contributing something meaningful to this relationship once you two are married, my fiancé Marcus said with a laugh, gesturing toward me with his beer bottle. I mean, look at her, shopping at thrift stores, driving that beat-up Honda. I'm basically carrying both of us financially. The entire Christmas dinner table went silent except for his cousin Jake, who snorted into his wine glass. Marcus's mom, Linda, shot me a pitying look that made my stomach clench. 23 pairs of eyes were suddenly laser-focused on me, taking in my simple green sweater, which, yes, I'd gotten from Goodwill for $12, and probably calculating exactly how much of a financial drain I must be on their precious Marcus. I'm just saying, Marcus continued, clearly emboldened by the audience, it would be nice to have a partner who could actually help with a down payment instead of someone who thinks splitting a pizza is a big financial decision. More snickers from around the table. His sister Emma was trying to hide her smirk behind her napkin. His dad just shook his head like I was some charity case Marcus had picked up off the street. The thing is, they weren't wrong about my lifestyle. I do shop at thrift stores. I do drive a 2015 Honda Civic with a dent in the passenger door. I do clip coupons and suggest we split appetizers instead of ordering our own. What Marcus didn't know, what none of them knew, was why. Sarah's been saving up for our future together, I said quietly, trying to give him an out, a chance to stop digging this hole deeper. Saving what? Marcus laughed again, and this time it was genuinely cruel. Your barista salary? Babe, I've seen your paychecks. You make decent money as a software engineer, sure, but you live like you're one missed payment away from being homeless. It's honestly embarrassing sometimes. The word embarrassing hit like a physical slap. Around the table, I watched his family nod in agreement. His uncle muttered something about knowing when you're out of your league. I felt my face burn, but not from shame. From rage. For 3 years, I'd maintained this careful balance. I'd grown up watching gold diggers circle my father like vultures, had seen how money corrupted every relationship in my family. When I'd started dating Marcus, I'd made a conscious choice to live below my means, way below, to make sure anyone who loved me was loving me, not my trust fund. My software engineering job paid well, but my real wealth came from careful investments of my inheritance and some very lucky early bets on certain cryptocurrencies. I owned a portfolio worth more than everyone at this table combined made in 5 years. And last month, I'd finally done something with it that I was proud of. I'd bought us a house. A beautiful, stunning house with 4 bedrooms, 3 bathrooms, a chef's kitchen, and a view of the mountains that would make Marcus weep. I'd been planning to surprise him tonight, to drive him there after dinner with the keys tied in a bow and tell him it was ours. Our future. Our Christmas miracle. Instead, I was sitting here listening to him call me embarrassing. You know what, Marcus? I said, standing up from the table. Every eye followed me as I grabbed my thrift store purse. I think it's time I showed you exactly what I've been saving for. The room went dead quiet except for the soft Christmas music still playing from Linda's ancient stereo system. Everyone should come, I added, looking around the table with a smile that probably looked more dangerous than friendly. I think you'll all find it very illuminating. Marcus set his beer down hard enough that foam sloshed over the rim. Sarah, what are you talking about? You're being dramatic. Am I? I pulled my car keys from my purse, letting them jangle in the suddenly silent room. You just spent the last 10 minutes explaining to your entire family how financially worthless I am. I think they deserve to see what their future sister-in-law has actually been up to. His mom Linda cleared her throat nervously. Honey, maybe you two should discuss this privately. No, I said, my voice carrying more authority than I'd ever used in front of these people. Marcus wanted an audience for his little performance. Now he gets one for mine. Jake, the cousin who'd been snickering earlier, leaned forward with obvious entertainment. This should be good. What did you do, Sarah? Finally splurge on a nice dinner? The condescension in his voice made my jaw clench. 3 years of biting my tongue, 3 years of letting them treat me like Marcus's charity project, 3 years of watching him not defend me because deep down, he believed their assessment was accurate. Get your coats, I said simply. Marcus stood up, and I could see the panic starting to creep into his eyes. He knew me well enough to recognize when I wasn't bluffing. Sarah, seriously, what is this about? If you bought something expensive, we should talk about it. We're supposed to make big financial decisions together. Together? The laugh that came out of me was sharp enough to cut glass. Like how we decided together that I was an embarrassment? Like how we decided together that I can't contribute anything meaningful to this relationship? His sister Emma was filming with her phone now, not even trying to be subtle about it. Perfect. Let her document this. You're being ridiculous, Marcus said, but his voice had lost its earlier confidence. Everyone knows I didn't mean. Everyone knows exactly what you meant. I looked around the table at all these people who'd spent years looking down on me. His father, who always asked Marcus how he was managing financially was such an obvious burden. His mother, who constantly made passive-aggressive comments about my clothes, my car, my little couponing hobby. His siblings, who treated me like some kind of amusing pet Marcus kept around for entertainment. Where exactly are we going? Linda asked, wrapping her shawl tighter around her shoulders. Because if this is some kind of joke. It's not a joke. I grabbed my jacket from the back of my chair. It's about a 20-minute drive. Everyone can carpool or follow me. Your choice. Sarah. Marcus grabbed my arm as I started toward the door. His grip was tight, almost possessive, and for the first time tonight I saw real fear in his eyes. Whatever this is, just tell me here. Please. The please was what got me. Not because it softened my resolve, but because it confirmed what I'd suspected. He was scared. Marcus, who just spent 20 minutes humiliating me in front of his family, was suddenly very, very scared of what I might reveal. Why? I pulled my arm free. Afraid there might be something about your fiancé that you don't know? Something that might change how all these people see our relationship? The silence stretched between us like a wire pulled too tight. I could practically hear everyone's thoughts turning, trying to figure out what secret a broke barista could possibly have that would matter. They were about to find out. 20 minutes, I repeated, heading for the door. Follow me or don't. But this conversation isn't over. I was halfway to my Honda when I heard the chaos erupting behind me. Car doors slamming, voices overlapping in heated whispers, Marcus shouting something about me losing my mind. Through my rearview mirror, I watched the whole family pile into 3 different vehicles like some deranged Christmas parade. My hands were shaking as I started the engine. Not from nerves, from pure adrenaline. 3 years of swallowed words, 3 years of playing small, 3 years of watching the man I thought I'd marry throw me under the bus for a few laughs. The rage felt clean and bright, like a flame finally getting enough oxygen. My phone buzzed immediately. Marcus. Sarah, please tell me what's going on. You're scaring me. Then another text, whatever you bought, we can return it. We'll figure it out together. And another, I'm sorry about dinner. I was just joking around. You know, I don't really think you're broke. The word broke made me press harder on the gas pedal. Oh, he was about to learn exactly how not broke I was. Behind me, I could see Marcus's BMW leading the convoy, with his parents' Mercedes and his sister's Audi following. The irony wasn't lost on me. Here they all were, in their luxury cars, following my embarrassing beat-up Honda to see what pathetic surprise the poor girl had managed to scrape together. More texts kept coming. My mom is freaking out. She thinks you're having a breakdown. Sarah, please just talk to me. Where are we going? This isn't the way to your apartment. That last one made me smile grimly. No, it definitely wasn't the way to my tiny 1-bedroom apartment with the broken air conditioning and the neighbors who played music too loud. The apartment I'd deliberately chosen specifically because it was exactly what someone like Marcus would expect from someone like me. As we wound through the increasingly upscale neighborhoods, I watched my mirrors for their reactions. First we passed through the middle-class suburbia where Marcus had grown up, the kind of neighborhood he considered nice enough. Then we moved into the area where some of his wealthier college friends lived, bigger houses, manicured lawns, the kind of place Marcus always said we'd move to someday, when we could afford it. But we kept driving. My phone rang. Marcus, of course. Sarah, pick up. Pick up right now. I let it go to voicemail, then immediately got a text from Emma. OMG, where are we going? These houses are insane. We were in Ridgemont now, where the houses started at $1 million and went up from there. Way up. I could see Marcus's BMW weaving slightly in my rearview mirror, like he was rubbernecking at the mansions we were passing. His parents' Mercedes had slowed down, probably reading the real estate signs with increasing bewilderment. Another call from Marcus. This time I answered. Sarah, what the hell is happening? Whose neighborhood is this? Just keep following me, I said calmly. These houses are like $3 million. Did you get lost? Your GPS must be. I'm not lost, Marcus. A pause. When he spoke again, his voice was different. Smaller. Sarah. Sarah, what did you do? I told you. I saved up for our future. You can't afford, he stopped himself, but the damage was already done. Even now, even driving through a neighborhood that was making his family's jaws drop, he still couldn't imagine that I might be anything other than what he'd decided I was. Can't afford what? I asked sweetly. Go ahead. Finish that sentence. Silence except for the sound of our engines climbing the winding road toward the hill's crest, where the really expensive houses sat like jewels against the mountain backdrop. We're almost there, I said, and hung up. 2 more turns. Then we'd see just how sorry Marcus really was. The final turn revealed the crown jewel of Ridgemont Heights, my house. Our house, though Marcus didn't know that yet. It sat majestically at the end of a circular driveway, all warm stone and gleaming windows, with professional landscape lighting that made it look like something out of Architectural Digest. The Christmas wreath I'd had installed on the massive front door was nearly as tall as I was, decorated with real pine boughs and white silk ribbons that probably cost more than most people's entire holiday budget. I pulled into the driveway and parked directly in front of the 3-car garage, then sat for a moment watching the convoy of luxury cars creep up behind me like confused metal beasts. Through my rearview mirror, I could see faces pressed against windows, phones being raised to take pictures, and what looked like a very heated argument happening in Marcus's BMW. My phone exploded with notifications. Emma, Sarah, whose house is this? Jake, are we supposed to be here? This looks private. Linda, honey, I think there's been some mistake. And Marcus, calling again. I let it ring while I grabbed the small wrapped box from my glove compartment, the box that contained the spare keys I'd had made, the ones that were supposed to be his Christmas surprise. The ones that now felt like a loaded weapon. I stepped out of my Honda, and the contrast was almost comical. Here was this beat-up car with its dented door and faded paint, parked in front of a house that looked like it should have a Maserati in the driveway. The kind of house that required a gated entry and a security system that cost more than most people's cars. Marcus practically fell out of his BMW, his face a mask of confusion and growing horror. Sarah, we need to leave. Now. Before someone calls the police. You can't just drive people to random houses and... Random? I walked toward the front door, fishing in my purse for my keys. That's an interesting word choice. His family clustered behind him like nervous sheep, all designer coats and bewildered expressions. Linda was clutching her pearls, literally, while his father kept checking his phone like he was ready to call someone for help. Emma was still filming everything, but her earlier entertainment had shifted to genuine confusion. Sarah. Marcus's voice cracked. Whose house is this? I slid my key into the front door lock, heard the satisfying click as it turned, and smiled at him over my shoulder. Ours. The word hung in the December air like a bomb waiting to detonate. That's not possible, his father said immediately. The houses in this neighborhood start at 2.8 million, I finished helpfully, pushing open the door. The security system immediately chimed, and I punched in my code while 23 people watched in absolute silence. This one was 3.2. Cash offer. Closed last month. The foyer chandelier cast rainbow prisms across the marble floor, illuminating the fresh flowers I'd had delivered that morning, white roses and pine boughs that filled the space with the scent of Christmas and new beginnings. The curved staircase swept upward like something from a fairy tale, and through the archway, they could glimpse the great room with its floor-to-ceiling windows and stone fireplace. This isn't real, Marcus whispered, but he was already stepping inside, drawn by the same magnetism that had made me fall in love with the house in the first place. This can't be real. Oh, it's very real. I held up the wrapped box with the spare keys. Merry Christmas, darling. Welcome to our new home. That's when Linda fainted. While Marcus's dad and uncle rushed to help Linda, who'd crumpled onto my beautiful marble foyer floor, I watched the rest of his family slowly filter into the house like sleepwalkers. Emma had stopped filming and was just staring open-mouthed at the coffered ceiling. Jake was running his fingers along the crown molding like he couldn't believe it was real. Jesus Christ, Sarah, Marcus breathed, catching his mother under her arms as she came around. How is this possible? Software engineers don't make this kind of money. Even senior ones. Even in Silicon Valley. You're right, I said, hanging my thrift store jacket on the custom coat rack that had cost more than his monthly car payment. They don't. His confusion was almost painful to watch. I could see him trying to do math in his head, calculating my salary against the obvious value of what surrounded us. The numbers weren't adding up, and it was breaking his brain in real time. Did you rob a bank? Jake asked, and he wasn't entirely joking. Because this is insane. This is literally insane money. I walked deeper into the house, letting them follow me like ducklings. The great room opened up before us, all warm wood and tasteful holiday decorations that my interior designer had insisted were understated elegance. The Christmas tree alone, a 12-foot Fraser fir decorated with white lights and gold ornaments, had cost more than Marcus spent on groceries in 3 months. Sarah. Marcus's voice was getting higher, more strained. Talk to me. Please. Where did this money come from? His mother had recovered enough to clutch his arm, her eyes wide as she took in the stone fireplace, the built-in shelving, the kitchen visible through the archway with its marble countertops and professional-grade appliances. Marcus, honey, maybe we should go. This feels like a mistake. No mistake, I said, settling onto the custom sofa that faced the fireplace. Would you like the tour? The master suite has a balcony that overlooks the mountains. Perfect sunrise views. Stop it. Marcus's voice cracked completely. Just stop it and tell me what's happening. Did you take out some massive loan? Are you in debt up to your eyeballs? Because if you mortgaged our future for some insane... No mortgage, I interrupted. I told you. Cash offer. The silence that followed was deafening. Emma finally lowered her phone completely. His father was staring at me like I'd grown a second head. Even Jake had stopped his nervous exploration and was just standing frozen by the Christmas tree. That's impossible, Marcus said flatly. You don't have $3 million cash. You don't have $3,000 cash. I've seen your bank statements. You've seen one of my bank statements, I corrected. The checking account I use for day-to-day expenses. Did you think that was everything? The look on his face was shifting from confusion to something darker. Something that looked almost like betrayal, which was rich considering he'd spent dinner publicly humiliating me. What are you saying? That you've been hiding money from me? For 3 years? Not hiding, I said carefully. Being careful. Careful of what? His voice was getting louder, echoing off the high ceilings. Careful of your fiancé? The man you're supposed to marry? Linda made a small sound of distress. Maybe we should discuss this at home. No. Marcus rounded on me, and for the first time I saw something ugly in his expression. She brought us all here for a reason. She wanted an audience for dinner, now she's got one for this. So let's hear it, Sarah. Let's hear why you've been lying to me for 3 years about having enough money to buy a mansion. The word lying hit harder than I expected. I never lied to you. Bullshit. He was pacing now, his expensive shoes clicking against my marble floor. This is a lie. This whole thing. Making me feel like I was supporting us, letting me worry about our finances, letting my family think. He stopped, his face going red. Oh my God. You let them think you were some kind of gold digger. You sat there tonight and let them talk about you like you were using me for money. Actually, I said quietly, I think you'll find it was the opposite. What's that supposed to mean? Marcus demanded, his face flushing darker. The opposite of what? I stood up slowly, smoothing down my $12 thrift store sweater. The irony of wearing it in this multi-million-dollar house wasn't lost on me, or on them, judging by the way his family kept staring between my outfit and the crystal chandelier above us. It means, I said carefully, that I've spent 3 years making sure that anyone who claimed to love me was loving me for the right reasons. The silence stretched taut. Emma had her phone halfway raised again, like she couldn't decide whether to keep filming or run. Jake was standing perfectly still by the Christmas tree, probably calculating how much the ornaments alone were worth. Are you saying? Marcus's voice dropped to a whisper. Are you saying you think I'm some kind of gold digger? I don't know, I replied honestly. Are you? I make 6 figures. I drive a BMW. My family has money. He gestured wildly around the room. Why would I be using you for money when I thought you were broke? That's actually a very good question. I walked over to the built-in bar area, my footsteps echoing in the sudden quiet. Why did you stay with someone you thought was financially worthless? Someone who embarrassed you? Someone whose thrift store clothes and coupon clipping made you ashamed? His mouth opened and closed like a fish. Around the room, his family exchanged uncomfortable glances. They were starting to understand that this wasn't just about the house, this was about 3 years of carefully constructed assumptions crumbling in real time. I love you, he said finally, but it sounded hollow even to him. Do you? I turned back to face him. Because a man at dinner tonight seemed to love having someone he could feel superior to. Someone who made him look generous and successful by comparison. Someone whose simple lifestyle made his middle-class status feel luxurious. Linda made a strangled sound. Sarah, that's not fair. Isn't it? I looked directly at her. How many times have you asked Marcus how he manages with me? How many comments have you made about my clothes, my car, my little money-saving tricks? How often have you suggested he could do better? Her face went white because we both knew the answer. They all knew. You want to know why I kept this secret? I gestured around the house. Because I needed to know who you all really were when you thought you had nothing to gain from me. And tonight, I found out. Marcus was shaking his head frantically. No, that's not. Sarah, you're twisting everything. Yeah, okay, maybe I made some jokes tonight, but that's just how my family is. We tease each other. Teasing? My voice went sharp. You called me embarrassing, Marcus. You told your entire family that I was a financial burden who couldn't contribute anything meaningful to our relationship. In what universe is that teasing? You are embarrassing. The words exploded out of him before he could stop them, and the room went dead silent. His eyes widened in horror as he realized what he'd said. I didn't mean. No, you meant it. I felt something cold and final settle in my chest. Even now, even standing in a house I bought with my own money, you still think I'm embarrassing. His father cleared his throat nervously. Perhaps we should all take a step back. Why? I interrupted. Because now you're realizing your son might have been the one dating out of his league? Because the dynamics you thought you understood have completely flipped? Emma finally found her voice. How much money do you actually have? The blunt question cut through the tension like a knife. Everyone turned to stare at her, then slowly shifted their gazes back to me. It was the question they were all thinking but had been too shocked to ask. Enough, I said simply. Enough for what? Marcus demanded. Enough to buy a house? Enough to buy 10 houses? Enough to make me look like some pathetic. He stopped himself, but I heard the rest of the sentence in a sudden quiet. Enough to make me look like some pathetic gold digger who was using you for status while calling you broke. The tables had turned so completely that I could practically feel the room spinning. You know what the really sad part is? I said, walking over to the floor-to-ceiling windows that showcased the twinkling lights of the city below. I was going to tell you everything tonight. After we got back from dinner, I was going to drive you here, give you those keys, and explain about my family, my investments, all of it. Marcus's face went ashen. Your family? The way he said it told me he was finally starting to piece things together. 3 years of dating, and he'd never questioned why I was always vague about my childhood, why I never talked about my parents, why I had no college debt despite going to an expensive private university. My father owns Hartwell Industries, I said quietly. Maybe you've heard of them? They're only worth about $2 billion. Jake actually gasped. Emma's phone clattered to the marble floor. Linda grabbed Marcus's arm so hard he winced. That's impossible, Marcus whispered. Hartwell Industries, there, you would have said something. You would have told me. Would I? I turned away from the window to face him. Like how you told your family tonight that you respected me? That you valued my contributions to our relationship? That you were proud to be with me? His mouth opened and closed silently. Around the room, the math was finally starting to add up for everyone else. The reason I drove an old Honda wasn't because I couldn't afford better, it was because I was hiding in plain sight. The reason I shopped at thrift stores wasn't because I had to, but because I wanted to see who would love me when they thought I had nothing. Wait, his father said slowly. If your father owns Hartwell Industries, then you're Sarah Hartwell, I confirmed. I use my middle name professionally. Sarah Elizabeth Hartwell, daughter of Richard and Margaret Hartwell, granddaughter of the founder of Hartwell Industries. Trust fund baby, silver spoon, all the things Marcus loves to mock when he talks about his college friends who had it too easy. The silence was deafening. I could see them all recalculating every interaction we'd ever had, every assumption they'd made, every casual dismissal of my worth. The woman they pitted was actually worth more than their entire extended family combined. Marcus stumbled backward until he hit the custom built-in shelving. 3 years, he said hoarsely. 3 years you let me pay for dinners. You let me worry about affording our wedding. You let me feel like the provider while you were secretly. Secretly what? I challenged. Secretly hoping that the man I loved would defend me when his family called me worthless? Secretly praying that my fiancé would value me for something other than my bank account? That's not fair. Marcus exploded. You lied to me. You made me believe you were something you're not. No, I said, my voice deadly calm. I showed you exactly who I am. I'm someone who clips coupons because I think waste is disgusting. I'm someone who shops at thrift stores because I believe in sustainability. I'm someone who drives an older car because I don't need a status symbol to feel worthy. The only thing I hid was my ability to afford otherwise. Emma bent down to retrieve her phone with shaking hands. So when you said you were saving for your future together, I meant it literally. I pulled out the wrapped box with the keys again. This house was going to be our home. Our fresh start. I'd been planning this surprise for months. Linda finally found her voice. And now? I looked around the room at all these people who had spent years treating me like Marcus's charity project. His father, who had never once asked about my interests or goals. His mother, who had passive-aggressively suggested I wasn't good enough for her son. His siblings, who had treated me like entertainment. And Marcus, who had publicly humiliated me just hours ago, calling me embarrassing and financially worthless in front of all of them. Now, I said, setting the key box on the marble coffee table, I'm wondering if I've made a terrible mistake. The admission hung in the air like smoke from a fire that was just getting started. Marcus's face cycled through emotions so quickly I could barely track them, shock, anger, humiliation, and something that might have been grief. A mistake, he repeated slowly. 3 years together, and you think loving me was a mistake? I think lying to myself about who you really are was a mistake, I corrected. I think believing that you'd love me the same way whether I was rich or poor was a mistake. His sister Emma was recording again, probably uploading to her social media in real time. The thought of this moment being broadcast to her followers should have bothered me, but honestly? Let the world see Marcus Kellerman's face when he realized his broke fiancé could buy and sell his entire social circle. You want to know what's really messed up? Jake spoke up from his position by the Christmas tree. She's been subsidizing your ego for 3 years, man. Every time you paid for dinner, every time you acted like the big shot provider, she was letting you feel important while she could have bought the entire restaurant. Marcus whirled on his cousin. Shut up, Jake. This isn't about ego. Isn't it? I walked over to the marble fireplace, where framed architectural photos of the house hung like artwork. Because from where I'm standing, it looks like your entire relationship with me was built on feeling superior. The successful software engineer dating down. The generous boyfriend supporting his struggling girlfriend. That's not true, he protested, but his voice cracked on the words. Linda was clutching her purse like a life preserver. Marcus, maybe we should go home and discuss this privately. No. The sharpness in my voice surprised even me. We're not done here. You all wanted to humiliate me at dinner? You wanted to make jokes about my financial situation? Well, congratulations. You got exactly what you asked for. Marcus's father stepped forward, and I could see him trying to shift into damage control mode. Sarah, I think there might be some misunderstandings here. Perhaps if we all just... Misunderstandings? I laughed, and it sounded bitter even to my own ears. What exactly did I misunderstand about your son calling me a financial burden in front of 23 people? What did I misunderstand about him saying I was embarrassing? He was drunk, his father said weakly. Family gatherings, you know how it is, people say things. He had 2 beers, I cut him off. And even if he was blackout drunk, that doesn't explain the 3 years of letting me believe he respected me while clearly thinking I was beneath him. Emma lowered her phone. Wait, but if you've been rich this whole time, why didn't you just tell him? This is kind of cruel, Sarah. The accusation hit like a physical blow. Cruel? You think testing someone's character before marriage is cruel? I think lying about who you are is cruel, Marcus said quietly. His anger seemed to be transforming into something else, hurt, maybe, or just exhaustion. Do you have any idea what this feels like? Finding out that everything I thought I knew about you was fake? Everything you thought you knew about me was real, I insisted. The only thing that's fake is your shock that someone you claim to love turned out to be more than you gave them credit for. More than I, Marcus ran his hands through his hair, messing up the careful styling he'd done for dinner. Sarah, you're worth hundreds of millions of dollars, and you let me agonize over whether we could afford to upgrade from a 1-bedroom apartment. Because I wanted to see if you'd love me in a 1-bedroom apartment. The words exploded out of me with more force than I'd intended. I wanted to know if you could be happy with a simple life, with me, without needing more all the time. The room went quiet except for the soft hum of the heating system and the distant sound of Christmas music still playing from someone's car radio outside. And now you know, Jake said into the silence. He can't. Jake's words hit like a sledgehammer, and I watched Marcus's face crumple in real time. The silence stretched until it became unbearable, broken only by the sound of Linda's shaky breathing and the tick of the antique grandfather clock I'd had moved in from storage. That's not. Marcus started, then stopped. His hands were trembling as he stared around the room, taking in details he'd missed before, the custom millwork, the original oil paintings, the Persian rug that probably cost more than his car. Sarah, this isn't fair. You can't just spring this on me and expect. Expect what? I crossed my arms. Expect you to be happy that your fiancé isn't the financial burden you've been telling everyone she is? I never said you were a burden. You literally said I couldn't contribute anything meaningful to our relationship, Emma interjected, still holding her phone. Like, 2 hours ago. I have it on video. Marcus shot his sister a look of pure betrayal. Whose side are you on here? I'm on the side of not being completely humiliated when this goes viral, Emma snapped back. Do you have any idea how bad you look right now? You spent dinner trashing your secret heiress fiancé to a room full of people. That's when it hit me, the full scope of what was happening. This wasn't just about Marcus and me anymore. Emma's social media following, the videos she'd been taking, the sheer spectacle of the evening. By tomorrow, this would be everywhere. Oh God, I breathed, sinking onto the sofa as the realization crashed over me. The publicity. Marcus looked confused, but his father's face went white. As a corporate lawyer, he understood immediately what I was thinking. The family business, he said quietly. Hartwell Industries. This kind of drama will be front page news by morning, I finished. My phone was already buzzing with notifications, probably my father's assistant, or worse, my father himself. Richard Hartwell did not appreciate family drama becoming public spectacle. Emma, delete the videos, Linda said frantically. Delete them right now. It's too late for that, Jake said, scrolling through his own phone. Sarah Hartwell is already trending on Twitter. Someone recognized the house from real estate listings. My stomach dropped to somewhere around my knees. The house had been featured in Architectural Digest last year when the previous owners renovated it. The photos were distinctive enough that anyone with Google could identify it within minutes. This is insane, Marcus said, but he was pulling out his phone too, probably seeing the notifications exploding across every platform. Sarah, we need to fix this. We need to. We? The word came out sharper than I'd intended. There is no we in this, Marcus. You made sure of that when you decided to publicly humiliate me for entertainment. My phone rang, my father's ringtone. I stared at it, knowing that answering would make this infinitely worse, but also knowing that ignoring Richard Hartwell never ended well for anyone. I have to take this, I said, walking toward the kitchen for privacy. Sarah Elizabeth Hartwell. My father's voice was ice cold, the tone he used in hostile boardroom negotiations. Care to explain why my assistant is fielding calls from entertainment tonight about my daughter's domestic disputes? Through the archway, I could see Marcus and his family clustered together, their voices rising in what looked like a heated argument. Emma was frantically typing on her phone while Jake narrated something that looked suspiciously like a live stream. It's complicated, Dad. Uncomplicate it. Fast. Because in approximately 6 minutes, this becomes a Hartwell Industries crisis management situation, and trust me, you don't want that. The threat was clear. My father would protect the family business first, his daughter's privacy second, and my feelings not at all. I need 24 hours, I said. Just give me 24 hours to handle this quietly. Quietly? He laughed, but there was no humor in it. Sarah, you're trending above the president. Quietly sailed away about an hour ago. The line went dead. My father had hung up on me, which meant I had maybe 10 minutes before Hartwell Industries' entire crisis management team descended on this situation like a pack of wolves in designer suits. Sarah? Marcus appeared in the kitchen doorway, his face pale. We have a problem. A big problem. I turned my phone face down on the marble countertop. Bigger than your fiancé secretly being worth more than your entire family combined? Yeah, actually. He held up his phone, and I could see the Twitter trending page. Hashtag secret heiress was number 2, right below hashtag Christmas revenge. Someone identified your dad. The Hartwell connection is everywhere. My blood turned to ice water. Through the kitchen window, I could see headlights turning into the circular driveway. Too many headlights for comfort. Are those? I squinted at the approaching vehicles. News vans, Marcus confirmed grimly. 3 of them so far. Emma's livestream hit 50,000 viewers before she cut it off. The irony would have been hilarious if it wasn't so catastrophic. I'd spent 3 years hiding from exactly this kind of attention, and now Marcus's public humiliation had thrust me directly into the spotlight I'd been desperately avoiding. This is exactly why I kept it secret, I said, watching a reporter and cameraman climb out of the first van. This circus, this insanity. I just wanted a normal relationship. Normal? Marcus's voice cracked. Sarah, nothing about this is normal. You bought a mansion without telling me. Your family owns half the Fortune 500. Hyperbole much? But my heart wasn't in the sarcasm. The second news van was setting up what looked like professional lighting equipment on my front lawn. We need to get everyone out of here. Now. Too late, Jake called from the great room. They're setting up for broadcasts. I can see the Channel 7 logo from here. Linda appeared beside Marcus, clutching her coat like armor. Can't we just leave through the back? Sure, I said bitterly, except there's probably a helicopter overhead by now getting aerial shots. Welcome to my world, Linda. This is why I drive a Honda and shop at thrift stores. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Miss Hartwell, this is Diane Chen from TMZ. Can we get a comment on the broken engagement? Broken engagement? Marcus read over my shoulder, his face going white. Who said anything about broken? I stared at him, this man I'd planned to marry, who was standing in the kitchen of the house I bought for our future, while reporters literally camped on our lawn because he couldn't resist making me the punchline of his family's entertainment. Well? I asked quietly. Is it broken? The question hung between us like a blade. In the great room, I could hear his family's increasingly panicked voices as more vehicles arrived outside. Emma was crying about her social media accounts being completely blown up, while Jake provided unhelpful commentary about which news outlets were setting up camp. Marcus opened his mouth, then closed it. Then opened it again. I don't know. The honesty was somehow worse than if he'd just said yes. You don't know, I repeated. Your fiancé turns out to be wealthy instead of poor, and you don't know if you still want to marry her. It's not about the money, Sarah. It's about the lying. I never lied. Lying by omission is still lying. My phone rang again, my mother this time. Margaret Hartwell only called during family crises or social disasters. Sometimes both simultaneously. Outside, the first reporter was doing a practice run, gesturing dramatically at my front door while her cameraman adjusted his equipment. This was spiraling completely out of control, and I was trapped in my own beautiful house with the man who'd caused it all. My mother's ringtone cut through the chaos like a knife. Margaret Hartwell's calls were never good news, but during a family crisis? They were apocalyptic. Don't answer it, Marcus said desperately, reaching for my phone. Please, Sarah. We need to figure this out first. I stepped back, keeping the phone out of his reach. Figure what out, exactly? How to spin this so you don't look like the guy who publicly humiliated his secret heiress fiancé. That's not what he stopped mid-sentence as car doors slammed outside. Through the kitchen window, I could see more reporters arriving, some with satellite equipment that suggested this was about to become a much bigger story. My phone stopped ringing, then immediately started again. This time it was my father's assistant, Rebecca. When Rebecca called instead of texting, it meant damage control mode was officially activated. I have to take this, I said, but before I could answer, Emma burst into the kitchen. Sarah, there's a woman at the door claiming to be from Vanity Fair, she said breathlessly. She says she's doing a feature on America's most eligible secret heiresses and wants to know if the engagement is really off. How did they even know there was an engagement? Marcus demanded. Emma held up her phone sheepishly. I may have mentioned it in my livestream. Before I knew who Sarah really was. I was kind of making fun of how you could do better. The silence that followed was deafening. Marcus stared at his sister like he'd never seen her before, while I felt something cold and final settle in my chest. You were making fun of how your brother could do better than me, I said slowly. While livestreaming to 50,000 people. I didn't know. Emma protested. I thought you were just some random girl he was settling for. Some random girl he was settling for. I repeated the words, tasting their poison. Is that really how all of you saw me? Linda appeared in the doorway, her face streaked with tears. The reporters are asking about wedding plans. They want to know if there's going to be a Hartwell family announcement. My phone buzzed with a text from Rebecca, your father is en route. ETA 15 minutes. Suggest you prepare statement ASAP. The blood drained from my face. Richard Hartwell traveling personally to handle a crisis meant this had escalated beyond family embarrassment into corporate threat territory. My father's coming, I said, mostly to myself. Marcus grabbed my arm. Sarah, please. Before he gets here, before this gets any worse, can we just talk? Alone? I looked at his hand on my arm, then at his face. For 3 years, I'd seen love there, or thought I had. Now I wasn't sure what I was looking at. Desperation, maybe. Damage control, definitely. Jake's giving interviews, Linda announced from the doorway. He's telling them about dinner, about what you said, Marcus. What? Marcus spun toward his mother. He's what? Channel 7 offered him $500, she said weakly. He said it was easy money for just telling the truth. Through the kitchen window, I could see Jake gesticulating wildly next to a news van, clearly enjoying his 15 minutes of fame at our expense. My phone rang again. This time, I answered without checking the caller ID. Sarah Hartwell. Ms. Hartwell, this is Bradley Morrison from the Washington Post. We're running a story about wealth inequality in modern relationships. Would you care to comment on why you chose to hide your financial status from your fiancé? I hung up immediately, but the damage was done. This wasn't just gossip anymore, they were turning it into a think piece about class and deception. We need to leave, I said. Now. Before my father gets here and this becomes a Hartwell Industries media event. But as I said it, I realized the terrible truth. There was nowhere to run. My phone buzzed again with an unknown number. Against my better judgment, I answered. Sarah Hartwell? This is Jennifer Walsh from Good Morning America. We'd like to offer you an exclusive interview about modern dating deception and... I hung up and immediately powered off my phone, but the silence felt ominous rather than peaceful. Marcus was staring at me like I was a stranger, which maybe I was. Maybe I always had been. Sarah, he said quietly, I need to ask you something, and I need you to be completely honest. That's rich, coming from you. Please. His voice cracked. Did you ever actually love me? Or was this all just some sick experiment? The question hit like a physical blow. Through the kitchen window, I could see more news vans arriving, their satellite dishes extending like mechanical flowers reaching for the sky. Jake was now talking to multiple reporters simultaneously, probably selling different versions of the same story. Are you seriously asking me that? I whispered. I bought you a house, Marcus. I was going to give you keys tonight and tell you everything. How is that an experiment? Because you watched me struggle. His voice rose, carrying into the great room where his family was clustered around the Christmas tree like refugees. You watched me stress about money, about providing for us, about whether we could afford kids someday. And you just sat there, knowing you could fix everything with one phone call. I wanted to see if you could love me without needing to fix anything, I shot back. Apparently, I got my answer. Linda appeared in the doorway again, her mascara smeared. Marcus, honey, your father thinks we should call our lawyer. The reporters are asking about prenups and whether the family knew about Sarah's situation. Situation, I repeated flatly. Is that what we're calling it? Before anyone could answer, the doorbell rang. Not the cheerful chime I'd programmed into the system, but the harsh, insistent buzz that meant someone was holding their finger down on the button. Don't answer it, Marcus said immediately. It could be my father. Or it could be 60 reporters with cameras. Emma peeked through the front window's side panel. It's a woman in a really expensive coat. She looks official. My stomach dropped. Tall? Blonde? Looks like she could kill you with her purse? That's surprisingly accurate. I closed my eyes. That's my mother. Margaret Hartwell didn't do family drama. She eliminated it with surgical precision, usually by throwing enough money and legal threats at the problem until it disappeared. Her arrival meant this situation had officially moved from embarrassing family incident to threat to the Hartwell legacy. The doorbell stopped ringing, replaced by sharp, authoritative knocking. My mother had never been a patient woman. Sarah Elizabeth, open this door immediately. Her voice carried through the solid wood like she was using a megaphone. We have approximately 7 minutes before your father arrives with the entire legal team, and trust me, you want to handle this my way instead of his. Marcus went pale. Legal team? When Hartwell Industries stock price fluctuates because of family drama, lawyers get involved, I explained, walking toward the front door. My little revenge plot just became a shareholder concern. Emma was frantically scrolling through her phone. Oh my god, you guys, Hartwell stock is actually down 2%. There are articles about leadership stability and family values. 2% of a billion-dollar company, Linda breathed. That's $20 million, I finished. $20 million lost because your son couldn't resist humiliating me at Christmas dinner. The knocking intensified. My mother was not going to wait much longer, and when Margaret Hartwell's patience ran out, everyone in the vicinity suffered the consequences. Marcus grabbed my hand as I reached for the door handle. Sarah, whatever happens next, I want you to know that I did love you. I do love you. This is all just overwhelming. I looked down at our joined hands, remembering how excited I'd been just hours ago to surprise him with the keys to our future. Now that future felt like something fragile that had already shattered. I know, I said softly. But I'm not sure love is enough anymore. Then I opened the door to face my mother's wrath. Margaret Hartwell stood on my doorstep like an avenging angel in Chanel, her perfectly coiffed blonde hair unmoved despite the December wind. Behind her, I could see at least 15 reporters with cameras, all trying to get close enough to catch our conversation. Inside. Now. She swept past me without invitation, her heels clicking authoritatively against my marble floor. And you, she pointed at Marcus, are the fiancé, I presume? Yes, ma'am, Marcus stammered, straightening his posture like a soldier called to attention. Wonderful. We need to discuss your options. She turned to survey his family, who were still clustered around my Christmas tree like confused ornaments. All of you. Sit. They sat immediately. Even Linda, who I'd never seen take orders from anyone, perched on the edge of my sofa with her hands folded in her lap. My mother pulled out her phone and began typing rapidly. First item of business, Jake. The cousin who's currently telling Channel 7 about Marcus's gold digger comments needs to stop talking immediately, or he'll find himself facing a defamation lawsuit that will financially ruin him for the next 30 years. Through the window, I watched Jake suddenly step away from the reporters, his phone pressed to his ear and his face going white. My mother's reach was impressive, even by Hartwell standards. Second item, she continued, not even looking up from her phone, Emma's social media accounts will be temporarily suspended within the next 10 minutes. My people are handling it. You can't just, Emma started. I can and I did. Third item, this house is now under private security lockdown. No one leaves, no one enters, until we control the narrative. As if summoned by her words, 3 black SUVs pulled into my circular driveway. Men in expensive suits began efficiently creating a perimeter around the property, pushing reporters back with the kind of polite menace that screamed professional security. Marcus was staring at my mother like she was a force of nature, which wasn't entirely inaccurate. Mrs. Hartwell, I think there might be some misunderstanding. The misunderstanding, she interrupted, finally looking directly at him, is that you thought publicly humiliating a Hartwell would have no consequences. Her smile was sharp enough to cut glass. Marcus, isn't it? Tell me, what exactly did you hope to accomplish by calling my daughter financially worthless in front of your family? I didn't know she was your daughter, he said weakly. That's precisely the problem. She sat down across from him, crossing her legs with predatory precision. You didn't know who she was because you never bothered to truly know her at all. My phone, which I turned back on to coordinate with security, was buzzing nonstop with notifications. Entertainment reporters, financial journalists, and what looked like several morning show producers all wanted statements about the Christmas-era scandal. Mom, I said carefully, what's Dad's plan when he gets here? Full damage control. Press conference, prepared statements, probably a strategic leak about your charitable foundation work to counteract the spoiled rich girl narrative. She paused in her typing. Unless, of course, you have a better idea. The weight of her expectation settled on my shoulders like a familiar burden. This was how it always worked in the Hartwell family. Personal problems became public relations challenges, solved through money, influence, and carefully crafted media spin. What if I don't want damage control? I asked quietly. What if I want to tell the truth? The room went dead silent. Even Marcus stopped his nervous fidgeting to stare at me. My mother's expression shifted from professional to genuinely concerned. Darling, the truth is rarely as palatable as people think it is. Maybe that's exactly the problem. The sound of my father's Mercedes pulling into the driveway cut through the tension like a blade. Richard Hartwell had arrived, and from the way my mother's jaw tightened, I could tell this was about to get infinitely worse. Showtime, she murmured, standing and smoothing her already perfect skirt. Sarah, whatever you're thinking about telling the truth, I suggest you reconsider. Your father is not in a forgiving mood. Through the window, I watched my father emerge from his car flanked by two men in identical navy suits, corporate attorneys, no doubt, armed with NDAs and settlement offers. Behind them came a third car carrying what looked like his entire crisis management team. Marcus was watching this parade of power with growing horror. Sarah, how bad is this going to get? Before I could answer, my father walked through my front door without knocking, his presence immediately commanding the room. At 62, Richard Hartwell still had the bearing of a man who owned everything he surveyed, probably because he usually did. Sarah. His voice was crisp, businesslike. We have a situation. I'm aware. Are you? He gestured toward the windows, where I could now see news helicopters circling overhead like mechanical vultures. Because in the last hour, Hartwell Industries stock has dropped another 3%. Our competitors are already releasing statements about family stability and leadership concerns. Linda made a small whimpering sound. The reality of what Marcus's dinner performance had unleashed was finally sinking in for all of them. One of the attorneys stepped forward, briefcase in hand. Ms. Hartwell, we prepared several options for managing this situation. The first involves a joint statement with Mr. Kellerman here, emphasizing the mutual respect and amicable nature of your relationship. Amicable, I repeated. Is that what we're calling it when someone publicly calls their fiancé a financial burden? Marcus flinched, but my father's expression didn't change. What we're calling it is damage control. Your personal feelings are secondary to protecting the family business. The family business. The words tasted bitter. Of course. God forbid Richard Hartwell's daughter have actual human emotions that can't be managed by a PR team. My mother shot me a warning look, but I was past caring. 3 years of hiding who I was, one night of humiliation, and now my family swooping in to manage the fallout like I was a corporate liability instead of their daughter. Sarah, my father said, his tone carrying the edge it got during hostile takeovers, you will cooperate with the team's recommendations, or you will find yourself financially cut off from the family trust. Permanently. The threat hung in the air like poison gas. Emma gasped audibly, while Marcus went white as paper. Even my mother looked shocked at how quickly my father had escalated to ultimatums. You're threatening to disown me because your stock price dropped? I asked incredulously. I'm protecting a business that employs 40,000 people from being destroyed by your romantic drama, he shot back. The quarterly board meeting is next week. Do you have any idea how this looks to our investors? Marcus finally found his voice. Mr. Hartwell, I never intended for any of this to happen. If I could take back what I said at dinner. But you can't, my father interrupted coldly. What's done is done. Now we manage the consequences. Outside, I could see Jake being escorted away from the reporters by 2 security guards. Emma's phone was completely dead. My mother's people had apparently been thorough in their social media shutdown. The entire circus was being contained, controlled, managed. Just like I was about to be. The second attorney opened his briefcase and pulled out a stack of documents. These are confidentiality agreements for everyone present. Standard language, very generous compensation for your cooperation. You're paying them to keep quiet about what happened. I stared at my parents in disbelief. We're paying them to disappear, my mother corrected smoothly. Different thing entirely. That's when I realized they weren't here to save my relationship or protect my reputation. They were here to bury the whole thing so completely that it would be like Marcus Kellerman and his family had never existed at all. The confidentiality agreements sat on my marble coffee table like death certificates for the truth. I stared at the neat stack of legal documents that would erase Marcus and his entire family from my life, along with any consequences for their actions. No, I said quietly. The room went still. My father's eyebrow arched in that way that had intimidated Fortune 500 CEOs. Excuse me? I said no. I stood up, smoothing my $12 thrift store sweater. I'm not signing anything. And neither are they. Marcus looked between me and my father like he was watching a tennis match that might end in nuclear war. Sarah, maybe we should. Should what? Let my parents pay you to pretend tonight never happened. Let you take their money and disappear so I can go back to hiding who I am? The attorneys exchanged nervous glances. In their world, everyone had a price. The idea that someone might reject Hartwell money was apparently inconceivable. My mother stepped forward. Darling, be reasonable. This scandal will follow you for years if we don't handle it properly. Good, I said, pulling my phone out. Maybe it's time people knew exactly what Sarah Hartwell stands for. Before anyone could stop me, I opened my social media apps and began typing. My fingers moved quickly across the screen as years of suppressed truth poured out. Asterisk hi everyone. I'm Sarah Hartwell, and yes, I'm that Hartwell. Tonight my fiancé called me broke and embarrassing in front of his family because I drive an old car and shop at thrift stores. He had no idea I'd been living simply by choice, not necessity. I've spent 3 years hiding my wealth to find someone who'd love me for me. Instead, I found someone who'd humiliate me for entertainment. The engagement is over. The truth starts now. Asterisk. I hit post before my father could snatch the phone away. Sarah Elizabeth Hartwell. His voice thundered through my beautiful house. Do you have any idea what you've just done? I told the truth, I said, posting the same message across all my platforms. Novel concept, I know. Marcus was staring at his own phone as the post went viral in real time. Sarah, the comments, there are thousands already. I glanced at the screen. Support was pouring in from people sharing their own stories of being judged, underestimated, or humiliated by people who claimed to love him. The hashtag authentic love was already trending. My mother sank onto the sofa, her perfect composure finally cracking. The board meeting. Will be interesting, I agreed. But not nearly as interesting as what I'm going to do with my trust fund. My father went very still. What exactly are you planning? I looked around at the house I bought for a future that no longer existed, at the man I'd loved who couldn't see past his own assumptions, at parents who valued stock prices over their daughter's happiness. I'm starting a foundation, I announced. For people who've been underestimated, overlooked, or judged by their circumstances. And Marcus? I turned to face him directly. You were right about one thing. I am embarrassing. I'm embarrassingly wealthy, embarrassingly generous, and embarrassingly done with people who think my worth is tied to their opinion of me. I pulled the wrapped key box from the coffee table and handed it to him. The house is yours if you want it. Consider it a wedding gift for whoever you marry next, someone who fits your idea of appropriate, I'm sure. His hand shook as he took the box. Sarah, please. Can't we talk about this? Work through it? We just did, I said softly. For 3 years, actually. This is me working through it. My phone was exploding with interview requests, but also with messages of support from people who understood what it meant to be seen truly for the first time. The story was mine now, not my parents to manage or Marcus's to define. I looked at my father, whose face was cycling through rage and something that might have been respect. The stock will recover, Dad. It always does. But this? This was worth the drop. For the first time in my life, I wasn't hiding who I was from anyone. And I'd never felt richer.